The apartment did not feel like a home anymore. It felt like an echo. Amara sat on the cold tiled floor with her back against the wall. The room around her was almost empty. No couch. No coffee table. No curtains. The sound of passing cars outside slipped easily through the bare windows. Brown cardboard boxes were stacked near the door. Some were taped shut. Others were half open, filled with photo frames, kitchen plates, and small decorations that once made the space warm. Now everything looked temporary, like she was already gone. Near the window, a white wedding dress hung from a nail in the wall. The lace sleeves moved gently in the evening breeze. The soft fabric glowed in the fading sunlight. It had never been worn. Amara stared at it for a long time. That dress was supposed to be her beginning. Instead, it had become a reminder of her ending. Her phone rested tightly in her hand. She had been holding it for hours. Every few seconds she tapped the screen. No new messages. She refreshed it again. Still nothing. Her heart beat fast each time she checked, as if the phone might suddenly come alive and fix everything. 3 months ago, this apartment was full of laughter and plants. She had imagined children running through the hallway. She had imagined dinners cooked together. She had imagined a future that felt bright and safe. Now there was only silence. She slowly looked around the room. This apartment had once belonged to her parents. After they passed away, she kept it carefully like a treasure. Every corner carried a memory. But she sold it. She sold her business too, the shop her parents built with their bare hands. She sold the small piece of land outside town that her father once called our security. Everything. She gave it all up for love. Her fingers trembled as she opened her voicemail. She knew the message by heart, but she pressed play anyway. His voice filled the empty room. Soft, calm, confident. He had said he needed a little more time. He had said the deal was almost done. He had said he couldn't wait to start their new life together abroad. He had said he loved her. The message ended with a promise. A promise he never kept. Amara lowered the phone slowly. The silence felt heavier this time. She thought about the house papers she signed without hesitation. The business contract she handed over with tears in her eyes. The bank transfer she made with shaking hands. She had believed in him. She had believed in them. Outside, the sky was turning dark. The last bit of sunlight faded from the walls. The wedding dress near the window looked pale now, almost ghost-like. Her throat tightened. She had given up her home, her work, her inheritance, her future. And now she had nothing left but an empty room and a voicemail. A single tear slid down her cheek. She hugged her knees to her chest and whispered the question that would not leave her mind. How did love lead her here? Before Daniel came into her life, Amara was not a woman who sat on empty floors. She was the woman everyone admired. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, she unlocked the doors of Adissa Textiles. The metal shutters would slide up with a sharp sound, and the scent of fresh fabric would greet her. Rolls of bright cloth filled the shelves, reds, blues, golds, deep greens. The shop was alive with color. It was more than a business. It was her parents' dream. Her father started it with only one sewing machine and faith. Her mother stood beside him, measuring fabric, greeting customers, keeping records in a worn notebook. They worked long hours, but they worked together. Amara grew up watching that kind of love. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the steady kind. The kind that showed up every day. When they passed away in a sudden accident, the shop almost closed. Many people expected it to fail. Amara was only 21. Too young, they said. Too inexperienced. But she refused to let their dream die. She learned everything: suppliers, pricing, marketing, customer service. She stayed late, worked weekends, took risks carefully. Slowly, the small shop grew bigger. She hired workers. She expanded the building. She introduced new designs. Within a few years, Adissa Textiles became one of the most respected stores in town. People would say, "If you want quality, go to Amara." They called her strong, independent, focused. Some even called her intimidating. She smiled when she heard those words. But strength has a quiet side people rarely see. At night, when the shop was closed and the streets grew silent, she would sit alone at her small dining table. She would eat dinner quietly. The house would feel too still. Sometimes she would look at the old photo of her parents on the wall. Her father's hand resting gently over her mother's. Their eyes full of trust. That was the kind of love she wanted. Not for money. Not for status. But for companionship. She feared something she never told anyone. She feared growing old alone. Her friends often invited her out, but she was always busy. Work came first. Responsibility came first. Over time, many of them got married. Some had children. Their lives moved forward. She stayed behind running the shop. Whenever she dated someone, she gave her whole heart. She believed love required effort, patience, and sacrifice. Her best friend Lila once told her gently, "You give too much too quickly." Amara laughed it off. "I just believe in commitment," she would say. But deep inside, she knew there was a space in her heart that work could not fill. Success gave her respect. Money gave her comfort. But neither gave her someone to share the quiet evenings with. And that small emptiness, the one she tried to ignore, was growing slowly. It was not desperation. It was longing. She did not want to be strong alone forever. She wanted someone to choose her. Someone to stand beside her the way her father stood beside her mother. Someone who would not leave. She didn't know it yet, but that longing would soon open the door to the wrong person. And when he walked in, she would mistake attention for destiny. Amara met Daniel on a warm evening at a business networking event in town. She had almost not gone. She was tired from a long day at the shop. But Lila insisted she needed a break from work. So she wore a simple navy dress, tied her hair neatly, and showed up with polite determination. The room was filled with business owners, investors, and young entrepreneurs. People talked loudly about profits and expansion. Laughter floated through the air. That was when she noticed him. Daniel stood near the refreshment table, speaking confidently to a small group of men. He wasn't the loudest in the room, but people listened when he spoke. He moved his hands as he explained something, his voice calm but full of belief. When their eyes met across the room, he smiled. Not the casual smile of someone being polite. It was focused, intent. Later he approached her. He already knew who she was. "You're Amara, right? The owner of Odessa Textiles." The way he said her name made her feel seen. They talked for almost an hour that night. Not just about business, but about dreams. He told her he wanted to build an international trade company. He spoke about exporting goods abroad, creating partnerships overseas, building something bigger than himself. His eyes shined when he talked about the future. And when he asked about her journey, he listened carefully. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look distracted. He leaned closer as if every word she said mattered. For the first time in a long while, Amara didn't feel like the strong businesswoman. She felt like a woman. Daniel started visiting her shop often after that. Sometimes he brought coffee. Sometimes flowers. He complimented her hard work. He told her she inspired him. "You're not just successful," he once said. "You're rare." Those words settled deep inside her heart. He spoke about partnership, not just in love but in life. He said together they could expand her textiles beyond the country. He talked about travel, growth, and building generational wealth. He painted pictures with his words. A house abroad. Children running through wide hallways. Her business reaching global markets. A wedding that would unite their dreams. It sounded beautiful, but there were small things she noticed. When she asked about his family, he gave short answers. When she asked about his past business partners, he laughed and said, "Old stories." Sometimes his timelines didn't add up. A project he said was almost complete suddenly became something he was just starting. The questions formed in her mind. But each time he distracted her with charm, with affection, with promises, and she wanted to believe him. The town began to notice them together. People smiled when they saw them walking side by side. Some said they looked powerful together. He made her feel chosen, important. Well, months passed quickly. Their relationship moved fast, but it felt natural, at least to her. Then one evening, inside her own shop, surrounded by bright fabrics and surprised customers, Daniel got down on one knee. He held out a ring that caught the light. His voice was steady when he asked her to marry him. Applause filled the room. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear anything else. In that moment, all her fears of loneliness faded away. She saw her parents in her mind, smiling. She believed she had found the love they once had. She said yes. And as Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, Amara felt certain of one thing. Destiny had finally chosen her. The weeks after their engagement felt like a dream. Amara moved through her days with a new glow. Customers noticed it. Workers whispered about wedding colors and possible dates. Even the air around her felt lighter. Daniel talked often about their future. Not just about the wedding, but about building something powerful together. He said marriage was not only about love. It was about partnership, vision, growth. One evening he came to her apartment looking different, quieter. There was tension in his shoulders. His usual confidence seemed thinner. They sat at her small dining table. He held her hands, but his grip was tight. He told her about a major opportunity, A foreign investor. A large trade contract. A chance to expand operations overseas faster than they ever imagined. This is the breakthrough, he said. This changes everything for us. But there was a problem. The investor needed proof of commitment. Capital. Quickly. Without it, the opportunity would disappear. Amara listened carefully. Her heart beat faster, not from fear but from hope. This sounded like the future he always described. Still, she asked careful questions. How much is needed? When will returns begin? What guarantees are there? For a brief second, his jaw tightened. Then he softened. You don't believe in me? He asked quietly. The question felt heavy. I do, she replied quickly. He leaned closer. His voice dropped. I would never risk our future. I'm doing this for us. For our children. For everything we talked about. She thought about her parents again. She remembered how her mother once sold her jewelry when the shop struggled in the early years. She remembered her father working double shifts without complaint. Sacrifice built love. That was what she had always believed. Daniel explained that if they could raise the capital within 2 weeks, the contract would be secured. After that, everything would grow rapidly. Amara knew she didn't have that kind of money sitting in her bank account. But she did have something else. A small piece of land her father left her on the outskirts of town. He once called it backup for hard times. Was this not a hard time? She lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. Doubt and faith wrestled inside her chest. What if this was the chance that changed their lives? What if fear made her lose it? The next morning she made her decision. Within days she arranged for the land to be sold. The paperwork moved quickly. The buyer was eager. When she signed the final document, her hand trembled slightly, but she did not pull back. She transferred the money to Daniel. He looked at her with deep emotion. You won't regret this, he said. I promise. For a moment she felt proud. Proud to stand beside her future husband. Proud to invest in their shared dream. But as the days passed, updates about the deal were unclear. The paperwork is processing, he said. The investor is reviewing final details. There are small delays. Each time she asked for specifics, his answers felt smooth but vague. Lila noticed the change in Amara's face. You sold land? Her friend asked, shocked. It's temporary, Amara said firmly. It's an investment. Why the rush? Lila pressed. Amara's tone sharpened. You don't understand. This is bigger than what we see right now. But late at night, when she was alone, a small voice whispered inside her. Why did it feel like something was slipping? She pushed the thought away. Love required trust. Trust required action. And she had chosen her side. She would stand by him. No matter what. At first, Daniel's update sounded hopeful. The investor is impressed. The numbers look strong. We're almost there. But then the tone changed. One evening he arrived at her shop looking shaken. His shirt was slightly wrinkled. His voice lacked its usual strength. There's a problem, he said quietly. They stood in the back office of Adissa Textiles. The familiar scent of fabric surrounded them. The shelves outside were full, customers moving in and out as usual. Everything looked stable. But Daniel spoke as if the ground was breaking beneath them. He explained that the foreign investor had suddenly pulled back part of the funding. There were new requirements. More capital was needed to secure the full deal. If we don't act now, he said, everything collapses. Amara felt her stomach tighten. How much more? She asked. When he told her the number, the air seemed to leave the room. It was far more than the land had covered. She shook her head slowly. That's almost everything I have. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. I know, and I hate asking you. But this is our future. We're so close. If we stop now, everything we've already invested will be wasted. The word wasted hit her hard. She thought about the land. Her father's backup. She couldn't let it mean nothing. Over the next few days, Daniel called often. His voice carried urgency, pressure, fear. He spoke about deadlines, contracts, competitors waiting to take their place. Amara barely slept. She walked through her shop one morning before opening. She touched the wooden counter her father had built himself. She ran her hand along the shelves her mother once cleaned every night. This place was her stability, her identity, her safety. But she kept hearing Daniel's words. We're building something bigger. Short-term pain for long-term success. If you believe in us, trust me. She went to the bank. She mortgaged the business first. It felt heavy but still reversible. When that money was not enough, the pressure returned. Daniel's voice grew tense. If we lose this now, we lose everything. That was the sentence that broke her. Lose everything. She couldn't accept that. So she made the choice that would change her life. She decided to sell Odessa textiles. The news spread quickly through town. Customers were shocked. Employees cried. Some people whispered that she was foolish. Others said she must be desperate. Lila came to see her the day the final papers were signed. You're giving away your parents' legacy, Lila said, her voice shaking. For a man who hasn't even married you yet. Amara's eyes flashed with frustration. You don't see the bigger picture, she replied. This is an investment. When this works, I can build 10 more shops. And if it doesn't? Lila asked quietly. Amara didn't answer, because she refused to imagine that possibility. The day she handed over the keys, she stood outside the shop for a long time. The new owner spoke excitedly about renovations. Workers removed the sign with her family's name on it. Watching it come down felt like losing her parents all over again. Daniel wrapped his arms around her that evening. You're incredible, he whispered. No one has ever believed in me like this. I'll make you proud. After this deal closes, we'll have the wedding of your dreams. His praise filled the space where doubt tried to grow. She told herself the pain was temporary. Success would make it worth it. But slowly something else began to change. Her friends stopped calling as often. Conversations felt strained. People looked at her differently, less with admiration, more with quiet concern. She stopped sharing details about the business deal. She avoided questions. Her world began to shrink. Daniel became the center of everything. Her plans. Her money. Her hope. If he succeeded, she succeeded. If he failed, she didn't allow her mind to finish that thought. Instead, she held tighter to him. Because after selling her stability, she had nothing left to stand on except faith in the man she loved. At first, Daniel's absences felt normal. Business trips, he explained. Meetings in other cities. Long nights at the office. She told herself she was lucky he worked so hard for their future. But slowly his phone calls became shorter. The texts less frequent. Sometimes when she tried to call, he wouldn't answer at all. One morning while scrolling through social media, she froze. There was a photo of Daniel at a corporate event, standing very close to a woman she didn't recognize. They were laughing, leaning in, clearly familiar. The image felt like a knife in her chest. When she asked him about it that evening, he laughed, a light, dismissive sound that made her stomach twist. Amara, he said softly, don't you trust me? She's just a colleague. Her throat tightened. She opened her mouth to protest, but he continued. You're overthinking things. I told you business requires networking. This isn't personal. And just like that, the doubt she felt turned into guilt. She apologized. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have doubted you, she whispered, though a small, nagging fear lingered in her heart. The wedding date, once a source of excitement, was suddenly postponed. For business reasons, Daniel said. And she nodded, trusting him once more. He became increasingly distant. Sometimes he didn't answer calls for days. When he returned, he spoke about stress, contracts, investors. She believed him. But late at night, alone in her apartment, Amara began hearing the whispers she had pushed aside. A voice in her mind asked, why do I feel like he's hiding something? Why do I feel like I'm alone even when he's here? She tried to ignore it. Love, she reminded herself, required patience, faith, sacrifice. And so, she silenced the warning signs, one by one, choosing to believe in the future Daniel promised, even as pieces of her intuition screamed otherwise. The phone call came on a Thursday morning. Daniel's voice was unusually bright, almost urgent. Amara, he said, the breakthrough is finally here. But we have to move fast. I need you to join me abroad. Immediately. The contracts are ready, but the timing is critical. We can't delay. Amara's heart leaped. This was it, the moment they had dreamed of. The culmination of every sacrifice she had made so far. Everything? She asked quietly. Yes, he said. We start fresh. Together. Abroad. A new life. Nothing holding us back. She looked around the apartment. The walls were bare now. The brown boxes had taken over every corner. The wedding dress still hung by the window, a silent reminder of everything she had given. It felt surreal. Every step she had taken for him, the land, the business, the savings, had led to this moment. Without hesitation, she made the decision. She sold her house, the last physical connection to her family and hometown. She packed her memories carefully. Photographs, a few cherished trinkets, small mementos she couldn't part with. The furniture she could give away, she donated to neighbors and local charities. Neighbors whispered as she walked past. Some shook their heads. Some offered cautious smiles. Even Lila had stopped calling. "They're making a mistake," someone murmured. Amara ignored them. She could feel Daniel's voice in her mind, reminding her that they were building a future together. She had already defended him 1,000 times in her own heart. She would do it 1,000 more if she had to. The final step was the transfer of her remaining savings into their joint account. She watched the numbers shift on the screen. It was everything she had left, a lifetime of careful planning and hard work. When she was done, she sat on the floor in the empty apartment, her hands trembling. Her breath was shallow. He promised to send the flight details. He promised to be waiting. He promised that soon, everything would feel like the world they had imagined. So she waited. Hours stretched into an entire day. She checked her phone again and again, each time hoping for a message, a confirmation, anything. The sun dipped lower in the sky. Shadows stretched across the empty apartment. The wedding dress swayed gently in the evening breeze, a ghostly silhouette against the fading light. And still there was nothing. But she didn't leave. She told herself love required patience. Faith required waiting. And she had given everything. How could she not wait a little longer? The room felt impossibly quiet. The walls seemed to close in around her. And in that silence, the weight of her final sacrifice began to settle fully upon her chest. She had given him everything she owned. She had given him her trust, her future, her home. And now all she could do was wait. The silence started that night. No flight details. No calls. No messages. Amara refreshed her phone again and again, fingers numb, heart pounding. She tried Daniel's number. The call went straight to voicemail. She tried the office he claimed to work from. The receptionist's voice was polite but firm. "There's no one here by that name," she was told. Her stomach twisted. She checked the joint account. Empty. Every last cent gone. Her life savings, transferred to him just days before, had vanished. Her legs gave out beneath her, and she collapsed onto the floor of her now completely empty apartment. Her hands shook as she tried to understand what had happened. Then came the worst part, the confirmation. Through a friend of a friend she learned the truth. Daniel had left the country. Not alone. There was another woman. Photos had surfaced online. Daniel smiling, arm around her, traveling just as he had promised Amara they would do together. Her world fractured. She went through every detail of their life together in her mind. Every red flag she had ignored. Every hesitation she had pushed away. Every sacrifice she had made. She saw it all now, but it was too late. The grief was sharp and immediate. Not just for him but for herself. She had trusted. She had believed. She had sacrificed everything. And yet she had nothing, not even the illusion of love. The whispers of the town reached her ears. Some pitied her, some judged her, some gossiped openly. Her friends, once steady supports, drifted away. Amara replayed the voicemail in her mind one last time. His calm promises. His soft voice. Every word now felt like a lie. The tears came freely. Her body shook with sobs that felt like they would never end. She pressed her face into her knees, rocking back and forth. The room felt colder than ever. The walls, stripped bare, seemed to mock her. For the first time she realized the depth of her emptiness. She had given up her home, her business, her inheritance. She had even given up her sense of self. And for what? The silence answered her. Nothing. Amara was alone. Completely, terrifyingly alone. And in that moment she understood that sometimes the person you give everything to is not the one who deserves it, and the cost of love, when misplaced, could be everything you are. Amara left the empty apartment and moved in with a distant relative in a quiet neighborhood. The house was small, the furniture old and worn. The walls creaked, and the air smelled faintly of dust and cleaning soap. It was shelter but nothing more. The first night she lay on the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling. Her body ached from tension, but the weight in her chest was heavier. Shame pressed down on her, suffocating. She had given away everything, her home, her business, her inheritance, for a man who didn't even exist in her life anymore. Visitors came, but not many. Most whispered behind her back. Some offered hollow sympathy. "I'm so sorry," they said, their eyes darting away. Amara nodded politely, but inside, every word felt like judgment. She avoided mirrors at first. When she finally dared to look, the reflection staring back was unfamiliar. The confident woman who had run a thriving business, the woman admired and respected by the community, she was gone. In her place was someone smaller, broken, raw. Every night she replayed the choices she had made. She thought about her parents' legacy, the shop she had built from the ground up, the land she had inherited, and the friends she had lost. The guilt felt unbearable. She wondered if she had ever truly loved herself, or if she had only loved the idea of being in love. The loneliness pressed in relentlessly. She felt invisible in the world that had once admired her. Every day became a battle against self-blame and depression. But amid the despair, a tiny flicker of understanding began to emerge. She realized she had not just lost money. She had lost pieces of herself. Her identity. Her dignity. Her voice. Love, she finally saw, was never supposed to erase a person. Sacrifice was supposed to build a partnership, not a prison. The slow awakening was painful. Every memory of Daniel, every promise, every lie she had forgiven in her mind was a lesson etched in grief. She began to understand that the love she had chased had demanded she surrender everything, even the parts of herself that mattered most. And now, in the quiet nights of her relative's modest home, she began to promise herself something new. She would not disappear again. She would not give away her life for someone else. She would find herself before anyone else could take her. It was the first step toward healing. Small, shaky, and uncertain, but a step nonetheless. The day her phone rang, Amara almost didn't answer. She had avoided calls from everyone except her relatives since the betrayal. But the voice on the other end was familiar, soft, steady, and filled with concern. It was Lila, her former best friend. "I've been trying to reach you," Lila said. "Can we talk?" Amara hesitated, then nodded silently, letting the past catch up with her. They met at a quiet cafe near the edge of town. The small table felt safe, intimate, and ordinary. Lila didn't scold her. She didn't offer pity. She simply listened as Amara spoke, haltingly at first, about the loss, the betrayal, the emptiness that had followed her into every corner of life. When she finished, Lila took her hand. "Amara, you didn't just lose money. You lost trust, but that can be rebuilt. You lost friends, but you can reconnect. Most importantly, you lost belief in yourself, but that's something only you can reclaim. I'm here to help." Amara felt a lump in her throat. She had been so consumed by guilt that she had forgotten she could forgive herself. "Forgiveness isn't for him," Lila said softly. "It's for you. You need to forgive yourself for trusting, for loving, for believing. Not everyone deserves that, but you deserve peace." The words sank in slowly, like drops of water on dry earth. She realized she had been punishing herself far longer than Daniel ever could. That afternoon she made a decision. Small but vital. She would take control of her life again. She accepted a modest job opportunity, a stall in the local market selling small handmade items. Nothing grand. Nothing glamorous. Just a start. As she arranged the fabrics and goods on the counter that first day, she felt a strange mixture of humility and determination. For the first time in months, she could breathe without the weight of betrayal crushing her chest. The community noticed her return, not with judgment but curiosity. She smiled quietly at the familiar faces, slowly reconnecting with the world she had retreated from. It was not a complete healing. Far from it. But for the first time since Daniel disappeared, Amara felt she could move forward. The turning point wasn't loud or dramatic. There were no fireworks. No triumphant music in the background. It was a quiet, steady choice. To forgive herself, to rebuild, and to reclaim the life she had almost surrendered entirely to someone else. And in that choice, she found the first flicker of strength that would carry her through the long journey ahead. Amara's days slowly filled with purpose again, though the work was humble compared to the empire she had lost. She started small, setting up a home-based venture crafting handmade goods, beaded jewelry, small home decor, and fabric items she still remembered how to design. Each piece was carefully made, infused with the patience and skill that had once built her business. The first weeks were exhausting. Her hands ached from long hours, and her back protested as she bent over tables late into the night. But every sale, no matter how small, felt like a victory. Each customer who smiled at her creations reminded her that value wasn't measured in wealth alone. It was measured in effort, integrity, and resilience. Word of her determination spread slowly through the community. People who had once pitied her now admired the quiet courage in her eyes. Former customers returned, not because of her previous status, but because they trusted her work and respected her spirit. With each passing day, Amara began to reclaim pieces of herself she had thought were gone forever. Her confidence, her creativity, her voice. She set boundaries firmly. She refused to let anyone, no one, take advantage of her generosity or blind trust again. Some days were still heavy. Memories of Daniel haunted her, the weight of betrayal pressing down unexpectedly. But she learned to acknowledge them without surrendering to them. She journaled her thoughts, spoke with Lila, and slowly replaced guilt with self-respect. Her new venture grew steadily. She no longer dreamed of grandeur or global expansion. She dreamed of stability, dignity, and meaningful connections. Every new order, every thank you note from a customer, strengthened her belief that she could create her own version of success, on her own terms. The most profound change, however, was within. Amara realized she no longer defined herself by what she owned or by the approval of others. Her worth came from her resilience, her wisdom, and her ability to rise from the ashes of loss. In the evenings, she would sit quietly in her small workshop, surrounded by her creations. The room smelled faintly of fabric and polish, a simple scent, comforting in its ordinary life. She smiled at her reflection in the window, seeing a woman who had been broken, yes, but who had also grown stronger than she had ever imagined. Amara had rebuilt, not just her life but her sense of self. And in the quiet strength that now radiated from her, she understood that loss had not defeated her. It had refined her. She no longer sought validation from anyone, no longer feared solitude, and no longer equated love with sacrifice to the point of self-erasure. For the first time in years she felt whole. And she knew that whatever came next, she would meet it with the courage that only those who have fallen and risen can possess. Months passed and Amara's life had settled into a quiet rhythm. Her new venture was steady, her spirit stronger, and the heavy weight of betrayal had begun to lighten. She had learned to focus on herself, on building something real and lasting from the pieces of her life that remained. Then the news came. Through a friend in the business community, she learned that Daniel's so-called venture abroad had collapsed spectacularly. Investors had pulled out, audits revealed fraud, and his name was now linked to multiple scandals. The man who had promised her the world had not only abandoned her but had been exposed for deceiving countless others. At first, a rush of emotion flooded her chest, anger, disbelief, even a brief pang of curiosity. She thought about calling him, confronting him, demanding answers. But as she sat in her modest workshop, she realized something profound. She didn't need them. She didn't need his explanation to heal, and she didn't need his apology to move forward. The temptation to respond lingered briefly. His number flashed across her phone, a message waiting. But she locked it, refusing to unlock the door to the past she had already left behind. Closure did not come from confrontation. It came from growth, from surviving what had threatened to destroy her. It came from the quiet knowledge that she had reclaimed herself. Amara leaned back in her chair, looking at the small but thriving space around her. The fabrics, the handmade trinkets, the little signs of progress, they were hers entirely. She had built them, nurtured them, and watched them grow without relying on anyone else. For the first time, she understood that closure wasn't about proving someone wrong or right. It wasn't about answers or revenge. It was about peace. She had waited for him, trusted him, and sacrificed for him. But in the end, she had gained herself. And that, more than anything, was a victory no one could take away. With a deep breath, she smiled softly. She no longer carried the weight of betrayal. She carried only strength, resilience, and the quiet, unshakable knowledge that she would never lose herself again. The morning sunlight streamed through the small windows of Amara's modest shop. The scent of fresh fabric and polished wood filled the air. It was quiet, yet alive, a space shaped entirely by her hands, her choices, and her effort. She moved slowly, arranging small displays of jewelry and handmade decorations. Each piece reflected care, patience, and creativity. Unlike the empire she once owned, it wasn't grand, but it was hers and it felt whole. Amara paused and looked around the shop, her eyes landing on a small photograph of her parents tucked in the corner. Their smiles seemed to shine brighter now than they had years ago. She thought about the life she had nearly lost, the love that had betrayed her, and the sacrifices she had made. And she realized something that cut through the lingering pain. Losing everything had not destroyed her. It had saved her, from giving herself away completely, from trusting blindly, from defining her worth by someone else's promises. Her heart felt lighter. She understood that love should add to life, not erase it. Respect, trust, and self-worth were the true foundations of happiness, things no one could steal from her if she protected them. She smiled quietly to herself, touching the corner of the counter as if acknowledging the small victories that had brought her here. Her life was simple now but rich in ways that mattered. Strength, independence, peace. Amara had found a different kind of wealth, the wealth of self-respect, resilience, and quiet fulfillment. And as she opened the shop for the day, welcoming the first customers with a soft, genuine smile, she knew she would never again give away more than she had. For the first time in years she was truly free.